And I did a nice job with your photographs, and I like that you, in addition to kind of evaluating the pictures that you chose from, that you actually did a little bit of research to learn how he created this. This is obviously one of Weston's most iconic peppers, and as you mentioned in your paper, he made quite a few of them. There's another of them. Um, he used a tin funnel. He put them inside there, and that is kind of key to how he got this sort of lighting. And certainly there are some other tricks you could use, but just starting with the tin funnel kind of puts you in or on the right foot to begin with. You mentioned one of the difficulties that you had was that you just had a hard time finding the right pepper. And that's really not a surprise. The grocery stores tend to have perfect looking vegetables and fruits, and people tend not to buy the funky ones. And so there's a pretty good reason for that. In order to get the funkier ones, certainly there are some markets that you can get some bell peppers that have a little bit of an interesting shape, but you're better off at farmers markets and stuff, which obviously is not an option this time of year. You said that you didn't have the tin funnel, so you went with a tin pot and you used some black background inside the pot to help kind of shape the light a little bit. And I think that that's along the right direction. However, I think that kind of the key here is with the funnel is the way that it bounces the light off of the sides. So here with your pot, you have basically a cylinder, and each of those surfaces can reflect back pretty evenly onto the onto the pepper. And so we see that here, we have nice lighting all the way back as far as we can see in the pepper. Whereas if you look at Weston's, the light falls off pretty quickly. And that's just a result of the shape of the funnel. Having more of the cone shape, any light that gets in there is going to bounce back on the part of the pepper you don't see, rather than evenly along the side. You see with his lighting that he had relatively hard specular lights here, yet the shadows kind of fall off pretty well, except for right in the middle, fairly softly. And so this is kind of an in-between light. It's directional. It probably would have been perhaps a soft box, whereas here, much softer light. All of which is to say that you had options for the lighting that you chose to do, since you had two different inspiration photos, and you made your own two different settings. Certainly, I think your lighting is overall pretty good. This one here mimics more the Pepper 30, whereas probably these two better mimic this other number pepper. I'm not sure which one it is out of the 40 some he made. Another thing that you might consider is just changing your framing a little bit. So as you notice in both of these, we see pretty much the whole pepper. Here, whole pepper, we're getting it all in the frame. Here, we're kind of losing a little bit on the bottom. Backing up just a little bit is going to help you get everything in the frame for one, but also it's going to help you have a little bit greater depth of field. Of course, Weston was one of the f/64 photographers who really liked detail all the way through the image. And I'm sure as you saw your research that he had very small aperture in order to counteract the effects of the shallow depth of field for here. And there's actually kind of differing thoughts on this. In his day books, he wrote that he had about a 6-minute exposure, yet his grandson did an interview not too long ago, and he told the reporter that actually he had made his own aperture to be f/240, which is basically pinhole size, and it was a 4 to 6 hour exposure, and that's how he would get such a great depth of field still, while still being so close to the pepper itself. Anyways, as you might expect here, we have a pretty nice fall off in the depth of field, given your difficulty with your pot, it probably was the right choice to make. You said that one of the things you didn't like about it was you could see the texture in the back of it. And certainly had you gone with a smaller aperture, greater depth of field, then that would have become even more part of the image. Finally, both of these really kind of darken in on the edges. Part of that would have, I'm sure, been how the print itself was developed. You would have used dodging and burning to get the tonality just exactly right. And you can do the same sort of thing in Photoshop. There's tons of tools, and including dodging and burning tools. For me, I actually like curves, adjustment layers. I usually have two different ones. I have one where I bring the brightness up, and I don't think we actually need to do that for this particular one, but maybe bring one down. And so once I do that, I will invert this layer, which is Control or Command I, and then either paint with a brush, depending on what I want to do, or in this case, I really want to just darken all of the edges, so I'll use the gradient tool. The key here is that you want to change it from the default setting from black to white to black to transparent. We definitely want to stick with the linear gradient here. And if we reverse, so now we're going white to transparent, you can see how you can kind of drag it in there. Had we stuck with just the black to white or white to black, then what would have happened is each draw with the mouse would have reset. And so, we'd have one here, and then we'd move it to here and here and here. Because we're going with the transparent, we're able to kind of build up these layers. And you can get some really nice shaping this way without even going into the brushing tools. And then, from here you can get the brush, and you can edit that as needed. So, maybe oops, that's a little too much. Reduce my opacity and flow a little bit. And then maybe what we want to do is, darken some of these little creases. And by building it up this way, we kind of get more of the feeling that we had in Westons. And if you see all of these little folds, very, very dark, very, very dark. And so we can do the same sort of thing in post-production. Of course, we need to click on the right layer here. But anyways, you get the idea. And so, of course, the more time you spend with this, the more shape building you can do. You can really even take the corners further. And once you get things kind of close and you decide, no, that's really not enough, you can always tweak your curves adjustment layer even more. And between these, you can really get the feel that you want. Overall, I think nice job with your project. You were clearly going in the right direction. You mentioned that you would have liked to have had the tin funnel for this, and if you're going to continue to play with this on your own, I would suggest that it's probably easier to get one of those really cheap clamp lights. You can get them from like Walmart for like $5. If you unscrew the lampshade, that'll give you that nice tin funnel effect with pretty minimal cost. I'm not sure where else you might be able to buy a funnel that would work quite as well for this kind of a setup. Let me know if you have any questions.